Take a deep breath. You're here now, maybe winding down for the night, maybe on a long quiet drive, or simply taking a peaceful walk with your thoughts. Wherever you are, welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about something that quietly controls every part of your life. Not just the hours on a clock, but how we feel time slipping through our fingers. How modern life, with all its noise, pressure, and constant pace, has distorted our sense of time and left us feeling like we're always running behind. It's not just about being busy, it's about the illusion that there's never enough, even when we're doing everything we can. This is a slow, reflective journey through the history of time, how we came to live by the clock, and what it's done to our minds. So if you're falling asleep to this, or using it as calm company on a long road or a quiet evening walk, I hope it gently keeps you grounded. Before we begin, I'd really appreciate if you could take a quick second to subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment sharing where you're listening from. It helps this channel grow and keeps these deep conversations flowing right to you. Now, let's begin. Number 1. The modern mantra. I'm busy. Everyone says it like they're apologizing, but they're not. I'm just so busy. It's slipped into conversations like background static, a soft echo of modern existence. But it doesn't just describe our days. It defines us now. You hear it at work, from your friends, from the cashier who looks dead behind the eyes, and from the person staring into their phone like it might whisper freedom. We wear it like a medal. We post it like it's a virtue. Being busy means we matter. Being busy means we're in demand. But what it doesn't mean, what we never say out loud, is that being busy is often a cage, a shiny one, self-built, quietly suffocating. We chase minutes like they're running from us. We fill calendars, color code tasks, turn our lives into spreadsheets and to-do lists. Somewhere along the way, time stopped being the backdrop to our lives. It became the enemy, a thing to hack, a beast to tame. You don't meet people anymore. You fit them in. Lunch isn't just lunch. It's networking. Breaks aren't breaks. They're guilt trips wrapped in caffeine. You could be doing something better. You should be doing something more. The moment you pause, you hear the whisper, you're falling behind. But here's the strange part. Most of us don't even know what we're racing towards. We're sprinting for the sake of sprinting. It's not that there's a destination. It's that stopping feels like failure. Slowing down feels like drowning. And if you're not productive, if you're not efficient, then what are you even worth? It wasn't always like this. Time didn't used to tick so loudly. There were centuries when people lived by the rise and fall of the sun, by the seasons, by the silence. Time was circular, sacred, alive. There wasn't this constant pressure to maximize every second. Life was slower, and strangely, it was fuller. People remembered moments not by how much they got done, but by how deeply they experienced them. Now we confuse motion with meaning. A packed day feels like success. An empty schedule feels like punishment. You finish 10 tasks, then feel restless. You start to believe something's wrong with you, if you're not drowning in deadlines. You open your eyes in the morning, and the weight lands instantly. The weight of what you haven't done, not who you are, but what you've postponed. Not how you feel, but how much more you need to squeeze in. We keep saying there's not enough time, but what we really mean is there's not enough permission to rest, to exist without performance, to breathe without earning it. Somewhere in this culture of constant striving, we've lost the skill of being. And maybe that's why we're so tired. Not just physically, but spiritually. Not just exhausted, but empty. And yet, even in the madness, we feel the pulse of something deeper, especially in the quiet. Those rare mornings when you wake before the alarm, and the world hasn't started yelling yet. Those stolen minutes under a warm shower, when the water feels like a curtain between you and the noise. In those moments, time feels different. Not scarce, not hostile, just present, just real. That's the illusion. Time was never the villain. It's not slipping through our fingers. It's waiting for us to look up, to reclaim it, to stop treating it like a currency, and start treating it like a companion. And it's in those moments of stillness that we start to sense the distortion. The way our lives have been shaped by a ticking clock that was never supposed to be our master. The schedules, the deadlines, the endless productivity, they whisper that you must move faster. But your soul, it remembers something else. A rhythm not built by apps or alarms, but by breath, by wonder, by the slow unfolding of a life lived, not just measured. And this is where it begins to crack. Not just the illusion of time, but the illusion of self-worth, tied to how well you manage it. Because time isn't your jailer, and you were never meant to be just a cog spinning in someone else's machine. The real rebellion isn't to be more productive, it's to be more present. And in that presence, in that quiet, you begin to feel it. The clock slowing down, not because the seconds are stretching, but because you are finally showing up for them. Number 2. Technology's constant clock. The ticking never stops anymore. It's not the grandfather clock in the corner of a quiet room. It's not even the wristwatch you wear. The modern clock is everywhere, buzzing in your pocket, glowing on your screen, vibrating in your hand with every ping that demands your attention. What once was measured by the rising and setting sun has been broken down into milliseconds and push notifications. You don't just wake up anymore. You are jolted into your day with alarms, messages, breaking news alerts, a calendar already overstuffed. Before your eyes fully open, time has already sprinted ahead of you. The moment your phone screen lights up, it begins. The passive scrolling turns seconds into minutes. The quick glance at an email becomes 20 more tabs opened, and just like that, half your morning is devoured, not by life, but by the illusion of urgency. We've mistaken real time for reaction time. Every notification is a whisper in your brain saying, "You're falling behind. Respond faster. Move quicker." Someone else is already ahead. But faster doesn't mean better, and urgent doesn't always mean important. Technology promised us more time. Machines to clean for us, apps to organize for us, smart tools to streamline our days. But in giving us control over time, it also gave time control over us. Because now, the moment things slow down, we panic. Silence feels like failure. Empty moments feel like missed opportunities. We check our phones in queues, in elevators, in bed, on the toilet. Not out of necessity, but because the modern world has taught us that if we aren't constantly engaged, we're wasting time. But the truth is, engagement isn't focus. Being busy isn't being productive. And connectivity isn't presence. This new clock isn't made of gears. It's made of algorithms. Curated feeds that adjust every time you blink. Endless loops of content that adjust to your interest, not your intent. You no longer seek out time wasters. They seek you, and they're winning. Because your brain is wired to reward novelty, flashes of new images, new stories, new trends. Your sense of time isn't just shaped by minutes and hours. It's molded by how many stimuli hit you at once. And when your day is a relentless stream of fragmented updates, your brain doesn't register time linearly. It registers chaos. And chaos always feels fast. But here's the trick. Most of this speed is artificial. There's no real emergency. The ping from your coworker could wait. The email marked urgent is probably not. The 10-story swipe on your phone gives you a false sense of progress, like you're part of a conversation, like you're learning something, moving somewhere. But you're not. You're just in a holding pattern, circling over meaning, never quite landing on it. Technology speeds up your life by making you think you're not moving fast enough. And then comes the paradox. You were given more tools than any generation before you, voice notes instead of letters, online ordering instead of errands, reminders for everything, from hydration to birthdays. You should feel spacious. You should feel calm, but you don't. You feel like a person drowning in opportunity, shackled by invisible expectations, haunted by the ghost of potential that's never fully realized. There's always another task, another update, another call you should have made yesterday. You're not just using time, you're being chased by it. You tell yourself you'll rest after the next deadline, after the next reply, after you check just one more thing. But there's always one more thing, because the tools you use to manage time are the same tools that convince you you're out of it. Every smart solution adds a layer of pressure to use it efficiently, to optimize every waking hour, to match the pace of machines that never sleep. And you're not a machine. You're a human. You are supposed to forget things sometimes. You are supposed to get bored. You are supposed to take your time. But modern life doesn't give you permission to. It sells you the illusion that faster is freer, when in reality, it's faster that has made you its prisoner. Because when everything is urgent, nothing feels important. When everything moves at once, nothing is really experienced. When everything demands your attention, nothing truly holds it. And so the clock ticks louder, not because time is moving faster, but because your attention is being pulled thinner. You've confused speed with worth. But your life is not a race, and you are not behind. There is no trophy for who scrolls the fastest, no peace at the end of a perfectly optimized calendar. The silence you run from is not emptiness. It's the doorway to clarity. And sometimes the best thing you can do is close the apps, mute the notifications, and remember the clock on your phone isn't your master. It's just a tool. And sometimes the wisest use of time is to stop counting it altogether. Number 3. The dopamine trap. The illusion of time is not only shaped by clocks and calendars, but carved more deeply by something subtler, our own brain chemistry. In this internal landscape, dopamine rules quietly yet powerfully. It's the chemical spark behind our feelings of pleasure, motivation, and anticipation. But when life is wired to constantly chase these sparks, time begins to fracture. You pick up your phone for a second, and suddenly 20 minutes are gone. You scroll through 3 videos, but your mind's already thirsty for the next one before the punchline of the last even lands. The world no longer moves at your pace. You're moving at its demand, chasing flashes of interest, flickers of novelty, jolts of stimulation that keep your reward system hyperactive and your sense of time completely skewed. This isn't accidental. Platforms are engineered for it. Every swipe, every notification, every vibrating alert is a crafted invitation for your attention. But attention has a cost. Every time you shift it, your brain starts and stops, trying to recenter, trying to recalculate. This fragmentation creates what feels like mental noise, like static, and static compresses your sense of continuity. You don't remember the transitions between things anymore. You just remember starting something, and then suddenly it's midnight. Time vanishes, not because it passed quickly, but because your brain didn't get to properly mark its passing. Dopamine was never designed to run on this many cylinders. It once served as a survival tool, fueling focus during the hunt, rewarding discovery, driving us toward achievement. But now it's become a self-licking ice cream cone. Hit after hit, and yet never full. The pleasure that once arose after effort has now been flattened and fed to us in constant empty doses, like a sugar high with no meal. The hours don't just slip by, they dissolve untasted, unmeasured, because there's no arc to them, just more input, more click, more scroll. And this endless stream affects more than just our free time. It bleeds into work, into conversations, into silence. We begin to seek the same stimulation from everything. Even reading a paragraph without distraction starts to feel like a marathon. If a video doesn't hook us in 5 seconds, we're gone. We don't give time a chance to settle. We don't give our minds space to stretch into it. And the result is not just a warped sense of duration, but a constant feeling of being overwhelmed, of not having enough, of running behind something we can't name. But the most dangerous part is this: our sense of fulfillment begins to depend on speed, not depth. A long walk without checking a phone starts to feel unproductive. A task that doesn't give instant feedback feels pointless. But life, real life, the kind that roots you in time and memory, has never operated at that tempo. Joy, meaning, and presence come with patience, with attention, with space. They require time that isn't hijacked. Yet it's easy to forget this when the world rewards fast. When your brain's reward system has been trained to respond to more instead of meaningful. You begin to live in moments that flicker, but don't anchor. You remember less, not because you did less, but because your brain didn't get the silence it needed to store it. Time feels like it's shrinking, but in truth we've just stopped inhabiting it fully. This isn't a cry to abandon dopamine or technology. It's a call to reclaim pacing, to pause before the next click, to let the brain catch up to the body, to choose depth over repetition. Because if every moment is filled, nothing stands out. If every hit is easy, none are meaningful. And that's where the illusion hardens, when we think we're doing everything, yet feel like we've done nothing. When we spend a day stimulated but end it feeling strangely empty. When we realize it's not time we're lacking, it's presence. And presence, no matter how elusive, begins with a decision to look up, to stop chasing, to sit inside a moment long enough that it imprints, even if it's quiet. Especially if it's quiet. Because in a world that's always calling for your attention, silence becomes a rebellion, stillness becomes a weapon, and choosing what not to consume becomes the boldest way to take your time back. Number 4. The paradox of choice. You wake up and spend 15 minutes just deciding which cereal to eat. Chocolate flakes or almond granola. Then come the jeans. Dark wash or light wash. Maybe the black ones. But wait, those don't go with the shirt you wanted. So you stand there for another 10 minutes, flipping through your closet like it's a puzzle. Multiply this by every tiny decision you make in a day. The app you open first, the playlist you choose, the words you type in a message, and then delete. It's constant. Every moment feels like a fork in the road. And what's worse is that most roads look good, or at least better than the one you're on. This is the paradox of choice. At first glance, it looks like freedom, but dig deeper, and it starts to look more like a prison dressed up in velvet. The world today doesn't just offer choices, it bombards us with them. There was a time when bread was bread. Now it's multigrain, sourdough, low-carb, gluten-free, and made with Himalayan salt that's hand-rubbed by monks or something. And so, what should take 30 seconds takes 5 minutes. Not because you're indecisive, but because there's just too much to decide from. And your brain, it's quietly drowning. Every choice, no matter how small, consumes mental energy. That energy is finite. The more we spend it on low-stakes, high-abundance choices, like what to watch or what caption to use, the less we have left for the things that truly matter. And so, by noon, we're already tired, not physically, but mentally. There's a reason the phrase decision fatigue exists. It's not about making hard decisions, it's about making too many of them. And yet, we crave it. We swipe endlessly through playlists, convinced that the next song will be just right. We scroll through dating apps, skipping amazing people because their bio didn't mention hiking or they used the wrong emoji. We binge-watch trailers instead of watching a movie. We try 3 productivity apps in a week and get nothing done. It's like we're standing in a candy store, overwhelmed, overstimulated, and unsure of what we actually came for. But here's the strange part. The more options we have, the more we feel like we're missing out. There's always something we didn't choose, something that could have been better. And so even when we make a good choice, it doesn't always feel good. There's this ghost of the unchosen, haunting us, whispering, "What if?" in the background. That's why we check our phones mid-movie, keep multiple tabs open, and ask for 3 opinions before hitting post. We're terrified of not picking the perfect thing. So what does this have to do with time? Everything. Because while we're busy choosing, time is quietly moving forward. We don't notice it. It slips through the cracks of indecision, one scroll and second guess at a time. Time doesn't wait while we debate. It doesn't pause while we analyze. It just moves. And we look up, 2 hours gone, still wondering what to eat for dinner. The illusion is this: the more options we have, the more control we feel we should have over our time. But ironically, more options don't make us freer. They just make us slower. It's not that we don't have enough time. It's that we're spending it on 1,000 tiny choices that add up to nothing. And when the day ends, we're not exhausted because we did so much. We're exhausted because we chose so much. The cure isn't to eliminate options. That's not realistic. But maybe it's about choosing once, and choosing fully, picking a routine, and sticking to it. Wearing the same shirt on Mondays, eating the same breakfast, scheduling decision-free hours. Because when we cut the clutter, something unexpected happens. Time begins to stretch. Moments feel fuller. Days don't blur as much. There's a rhythm again, a beat, not just noise. And it's only when we reclaim that rhythm that we can finally feel like time is something we live in, not something we're constantly trying to catch. That rhythm is what takes us into the next moment, the next breath, the next quiet hour, where we can be still, not because there's nothing to do but because we've finally stopped dancing to every flashing option, begging for attention. And in that stillness we remember, clarity is not having more, it's needing less. Number 5. Why vacations feel long and work weeks don't. It's strange, isn't it? The way a week of deadlines and back-to-back meetings can vanish in a blink, but a weekend getaway, just 3 days, can stretch out in our memory like a long chapter from another life. There's something about stepping into the unfamiliar that slows time down, not on the clock, not literally, but in how it imprints on us. The new sights, sounds, smells, they all matter, and they all get remembered. That's the key. When life is full of novelty, our brains store more memories, more detail, and in doing so, trick us into thinking more time has passed. It's why the first week of a new job feels long, while the 100th week feels like it never existed. In contrast, repetition collapses time. When every day feels like the last, The brain compresses that experience, files it all away into one mental folder labeled same, and forgets the nuance. It forgets that you saw a cloud shaped like a fox while walking to work. It forgets the joke your colleague told at lunch. It forgets the moment of stillness while waiting at a red light, because it's not new, and what's not new becomes invisible. The result is this haunting illusion. Where did all the time go? It didn't go anywhere. It was just never truly noticed. This is why a child's summer feels like an eternity, because they're constantly encountering things for the first time. Every ice cream flavor is new. Every game is a discovery. Every hour stretches. Every moment magnifies. But as we grow older and life settles into routine, we trade discovery for efficiency. We learn the fastest route to work, the quickest way to get groceries. We batch errands, streamline habits, turn novelty into muscle memory. It's useful, it's productive, but it's also the reason entire years can slip through our fingers unnoticed. That's the tragedy of it. Time doesn't speed up, we stop noticing it. But the reverse is just as powerful. The more we disrupt our patterns, even slightly, the more we reclaim time's richness. A new route home, a conversation with a stranger, sitting somewhere without a screen, without a scroll. The more we engage our senses, the more time expands. It's a form of presence, yes, but also resistance. Because in a world demanding speed and multitasking, to notice things deeply is a kind of rebellion. There's a quiet magic in taking back the feeling of long days, not through vacation, not through quitting life and running to the hills, but through intentional novelty, through presence inside your own ordinary. Because it's never really about doing more with your time. It's about remembering more of it. That's how we stretch it. The feeling of I don't have enough time isn't a math problem. It's a memory problem. You want your life to feel full, then fill it with moments worth noticing. Not dramatic ones, not expensive ones, just honest, present, curious ones. Pay attention to the way sunlight hits your floor at 4 p.m. Notice the flavor of your coffee, instead of drinking it like fuel. Ask someone how they really are, and wait longer than usual for the answer. These small acts don't slow the clock. They stretch your perception. They give your brain material to hold on to. They make you feel like you lived the time, instead of just passing through it. The illusion of time, that there's never enough, begins to crack when you start seeing the day as more than a to-do list. When you stop racing through it and start wandering inside it. And yes, life has demands. Work, bills, responsibilities. But even in the middle of chaos, we get to choose how awake we are to the moment we're in. Because the hours are not missing. They're waiting to be felt. Number 6. The role of routine. There's something strangely deceptive about routine. On the surface, it appears to be a gift, a system of order to help us manage chaos. We wake at the same hour, eat the same breakfast, commute the same roads, sit at the same desk, and wind down the same way. There's comfort in the repetition, a rhythm to life that feels safe. But beneath that structure, time begins to warp. What once felt like a full, vibrant day becomes a series of forgettable loops. You blink, and Monday has become Friday. You blink again, and the month is gone. Then the year, then a decade. You wonder where it all went, but it didn't go anywhere, it just compressed. The brain is an efficient machine. It doesn't bother holding on to what it deems irrelevant. And repetition is irrelevant. The more predictable your day, the less your brain stores it in memory. So while you may live through hundreds of hours, your mind only remembers moments that stand out, and routine erases the distinction between one day and the next. It doesn't matter if you spent 10 hours working, another 2 watching a series, and the rest cycling through apps. If none of those hours contain novelty, they collapse into nothing. And when memory collapses, our perception of time follows it down. This is why vacations, new experiences, and even crises feel longer. They are irregular. They force your brain to pay attention. Your senses become sharper, your internal narrator more active. When you're out of the ordinary, you remember more, and those memories stretch time in hindsight. But with routine, days blur, and life speeds up. You don't feel time as much as you lose track of it. We tell ourselves that routines are necessary, even virtuous, and maybe they are, to a point. But there's a cost to treating your days like a conveyor belt. There's a cost to automation. When we move through life on autopilot, we aren't just losing excitement, we're losing our sense of being alive. Every day becomes a photocopy of the one before it. And with each copy, the ink fades. But what if the illusion of lost time isn't about how fast life moves, but how little attention we're giving it? It's not that life is rushing by. It's that we've stopped noticing it. We've given our routines the job of living for us, and we've stepped out of the process. Wake, work, rest, repeat, all without actually being there for any of it. It's not the minutes or hours that vanish. It's our awareness of them. There's power in breaking the rhythm, not with chaos, but with presence. The moment you notice your coffee, feel the heat of the mug in your hands, the way the steam curls upward, time slows. The second you step off the usual route to work, just to see a new corner of your city, time bends. The instant you stop mid-task to breathe, look up, and remind yourself that this day has never existed before and never will again, time listens. The real illusion isn't that there's not enough time. It's that we've stopped participating in it. We've outsourced our hours to repetition, and then blamed time for slipping away. But time hasn't betrayed us. We've simply stopped meeting it halfway. We may not be able to abandon all routines. Life requires some repetition. But the smallest act of awareness, of witnessing the present moment, can rupture the blur. It can turn a dull hour into a vivid memory. A Tuesday can feel like a Saturday. A morning commute can become a story. It doesn't take a grand vacation or a crisis to make time feel full again. It only takes a return to noticing. And in that noticing, we reclaim the rhythm, not as a trap but as a song, one we're finally choosing to hear. Number 7. The biology of time. You've felt it, without quite knowing why. The sluggish mornings where everything feels foggy, until the sun truly rises, or those bursts of energy that mysteriously arrive just after sunset. These aren't coincidences or quirks of personality. They are whispers from the internal machinery that governs our experience of time, the biological clock ticking within each of us, sculpting how we feel time pass and how we live inside it. Long before clocks ruled the walls and calendars dictated our purpose, our bodies already kept perfect time. This internal rhythm, the circadian rhythm, is one of the oldest, most deeply embedded systems in the human body. And it doesn't just tell you when to sleep or eat. It shapes your sense of reality. The truth is, your brain doesn't actually see time. It builds time. Every second you think passes is a construction, pieced together by a complex interplay of hormones, neurons, and patterns of light. Your brain is a master illusionist, a time artist painting moment after moment into a coherent stream. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, a cluster of nerve cells deep in the brain, acts like a conductor in this biological orchestra. It takes cues from your environment, the sun, artificial light, meals, even social interaction, and uses them to regulate everything from your body temperature to your mood. The more regular your environment, the more stable your rhythm. But the more artificial cues you introduce, late night scrolling, inconsistent meals, missed sunlight, the more distorted your time becomes. That distortion isn't just psychological. When your internal rhythms fall out of sync with the external world, you start to feel time differently. Minutes stretch or collapse. Days blend. A single afternoon can feel like an entire week, or vanish before you've had a chance to catch your breath. This is why jet lag feels like time travel gone wrong. Your body still thinks it's midnight in a place where the sun is already rising. But you don't need to fly across continents to feel this dissonance. Most people live their lives chronically jet-lagged, caught between what their body needs and what the world demands. We call it fatigue, burnout, mood swings. But it's also time distortion. Hormones like cortisol and melatonin don't just regulate energy, they regulate attention. And attention is what time rides on. When your body is aligned, your attention sharpens, expands, and holds on to moments. But when your rhythm is off, you lose grip. Moments slip through. Time starts to feel fragmented. And it's in that fragmentation that the illusion is born. The illusion that you're running out of time, that you're falling behind, that no matter how much you do, it's never enough. Your body doesn't ask for perfect schedules. It asks for rhythm, for pattern, morning light, movement, nourishment, rest. The more rhythm you offer it, the more rooted you feel, not in clock time, but in lived time. Biological time is slow, deep, quiet. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't worry about inboxes or deadlines. It cares about cycles, not tasks. And the more you live in alignment with those cycles, the more time starts to feel like something you have instead of something you're chasing. We were never built to be awake at midnight, under the glare of blue screens. We weren't designed to eat while working, to rush through meals, or to trick our brains into false daylight with phone brightness. These are new habits, but they're powerful enough to shatter ancient systems, and once shattered, those systems respond not with silence, but with stress, with anxiety, with the whisper that you're behind, always behind. But time, at its essence, has never been about speed. It has always been about presence. Biological time doesn't rush, because it's connected to something deeper, the beating of your heart, the inhale of your breath, the soft rhythm of a life being lived in tune with itself. You don't need to escape time. You need to come back to the one that was always yours. And from there we begin to understand what was lost and what can still be reclaimed. Number 8. Kids and time versus adults. And time. You don't remember worrying about time when you were 7. A summer day seemed to last forever. An hour felt infinite when you were told to wait. You could get lost in a single activity, making forts, catching bugs, watching dust float in the sunlight, and never once think about how long it had been. Now, as an adult, you blink, and half the day is gone. A week slips by without leaving a trace. Months disappear into the shadows of just being busy. And somewhere in that blur of passing days, the question creeps in, when did time start running? The answer may lie in how we perceive time differently across the lifespan. A child's brain is fresh to the world, constantly bombarded with new sensations. Every tree, every smell, every conversation is a first or a near first, and that novelty stretches time. The brain stores more detail, more memory, more mental snapshots per moment. So time feels thick, slow, full. The longer it takes to process the world, the longer those moments seem. For children, life is a buffet of unfamiliarity. For adults, the dishes rarely change. That's the strange thing about time. It's not the ticking of a second that makes it feel real. It's how much of it we notice. And when life becomes routine, the noticing stops. You drive to work the same way every day. You pass the same buildings, hear the same sounds, sit through the same meetings. There's no need for your brain to record every detail. It's already been there, already done that. The brain compresses the experience. It's efficient, yes, but it also makes the day vanish. If you've ever reached Friday and wondered where your week went, this is why. Children, on the other hand, are inefficient timekeepers. They dawdle, wander, ask questions. They pay attention to the feeling of water on their hands or the color of a beetle's shell. That attention slows the moment. It expands reality. And because they have less stored experience, less comparison, each event is weighted with more meaning. When you're 5, a summer is 20% of your entire life. When you're 50, it's barely a breath. But it's not just biology. It's also urgency. Adults live under a constant low-level alarm, a pressure to optimize, to keep up, to be productive. Children, unless forced by schedules, don't carry that. They're not checking the time. They are the time. They inhabit it. And that is what many of us have lost. Not hours, not days, but the ability to inhabit time instead of outrunning it. So it's not surprising that when you look back, childhood feels expansive. The memories are thick and saturated. You remember entire days, full of sunlight and boredom and wonder. But now, with so much repetition and so little mental space, your memories stack thin. A week might pass, and you'll recall only a few fragments: a work task, a stressful conversation, a half-watched show. This is where manifestation becomes not just a mental tool, but a way to reclaim time. When you live in awareness, when you make space for novelty, for intention, for presence, time stretches again. You become like the child, wide-eyed, curious, alive to the now. Time doesn't change, but your grip on it does. And this is something we can shape. The trick is not to try and slow the clock, but to fill it with meaning. Not constant activity, but conscious experience. If you're walking, walk fully. If you're speaking, speak with your whole presence. Bring intention to the seemingly ordinary, and watch how it transforms. You don't need more hours in the day. You need more you in each hour. Because time, for all its illusion, listens to how you live. Number 9. Multitasking. A time illusion. You wake up, the sun, not yet climbing over the buildings, and before your feet even touch the floor, your phone is in your hand. A quick scroll through emails while brushing your teeth. Voice messages answered while putting on your shoes. Breakfast. You're half listening to a podcast, skimming a group chat, and booking a ride simultaneously. And just like that, the day hasn't even started, but your mind has already been split into 6 directions. You feel productive, efficient, ahead of the curve, but beneath the surface, something's fraying, and you'll notice it later, maybe in the quiet moment before sleep, when you feel oddly restless, like the day ran past you, and you weren't really in it. This is the lie of multitasking. We tell ourselves, it buys us time, that we're beating the clock by doing more and less. But the mind isn't wired for parallel processing. It toggles, it switches. Every time we shift from one task to another, the brain pays a tax. A few seconds here, a few seconds there, small losses that accumulate into minutes, then hours, and yet we wonder why we feel like we're always behind, despite always doing. In truth, Multitasking fractures our perception of time. It makes everything feel urgent, but incomplete. Think of a day when you wrote emails during a meeting, texted while walking, cooked while scrolling reels. Do you remember any of it vividly? Probably not. Multitasking doesn't just erode productivity, it erases presence. And when we aren't present, we stop creating the kind of memories that mark time. That's why entire weeks can vanish into a blur of unfinished tabs and half-listened conversations. We were there, but only partially. There's also a deeper cost. When we multitask, we flatten the emotional texture of time. Moments become interchangeable. Joy feels less joyful, stress more relentless, because we're never fully submerged in one thing. We never hit the depths where meaning resides. Reading a book without checking your phone is a deeper kind of time. Sitting with a friend and letting silence stretch between words is a richer form of living. Multitasking skims the surface. It gives us the shape of doing without the soul of it. And yet, we keep doing it. Not out of laziness, but fear. The fear of falling behind. The fear of missing out. The fear of being judged as unproductive, slow, or irrelevant. In a world where everyone appears to be moving faster, doing more, and sharing everything, staying with just one thing feels like self-sabotage. We confuse motion with progress, noise with meaning, urgency with importance. We forget that being busy is not the same as being effective, and being connected is not the same as being fulfilled. But you know it, don't you? You've felt that strange hollowness after a day of multitasking. The odd realization that though you checked every box, your mind feels scattered. You responded to 100 things, but somehow, you avoided the one thing that actually mattered. The email you didn't fully read, the message you replied to too fast, the thought you never allowed to finish blooming. It's a cycle that leaves you full but starving. Saturated but untouched. The way back is deceptively simple. Doing one thing at a time. Giving it your full presence. Allowing your mind to stretch inside the contours of a single task. Whether it's washing a dish or writing a line or listening. Really listening to someone speak. Because when we do that, something shifts. Time opens up. Minutes feel longer. A task feels whole. And the reward isn't just in finishing, it's in the richness of having actually been there. The illusion that multitasking saves time is powerful because it plays to our deepest insecurities. The fear that we're running out of time, that we'll never be enough. But the irony is this, in trying to stretch time thin, we make it disappear. What we crave is not more hours. We crave depth, immersion, focus. These are not luxuries, they're lifelines. They are the keys to reclaiming our sense of time, not by squeezing it tighter, but by being brave enough to loosen our grip. And maybe the most radical act in this world of scattered attention is not doing more, but daring to do just one thing, fully, to sit inside it, breathe with it, and let the moment shape itself without rushing it forward, because it's there. In the stillness of that undivided attention, where time finally stops fleeing and begins to belong to you.
Number 10. When the clock was invented, the world didn't always tick like it does now. Before the gears of modern civilization began grinding in rhythmic certainty, time flowed with the natural world, rising with the sun, winding down with dusk. There were no numbered hours chasing you, no alarm clock dragging you from dreams. Life unfolded in a rhythm that was sensed, not counted. But then came the invention that forever severed us from that intuitive beat, the mechanical clock. It was not born of leisure, but of labor. In the monasteries of medieval Europe, monks needed a precise way to mark their prayer times. So bells were rigged to strike at set intervals, echoing through stone halls with authority. But what started as a call to devotion became something altogether different when clocks escaped the cloister. In towns and cities, the clock tower rose like a new god. It wasn't the sunrise or the crow of the rooster that signaled your day anymore. It was the clang of gears declaring the seventh hour. Suddenly, you didn't just wake up, you were late. The mechanical clock didn't just tell time, it created a new version of it. Segmented, measured, monetized. Before this invention, a day was something you felt. After it, it was something you owed. Work could now be timed, tasks could be scheduled, and productivity could be measured by the minute. In this new order, a minute wasted was not just a moment lost, it was a unit of value squandered. Time, once abundant and infinite, became a currency you could run out of. With this shift, something began to unravel inside the human psyche. No longer did people live in time, they lived against it. The hourglass wasn't symbolic anymore. It was a threat. The ticking of a clock wasn't ambient. It was accusatory. It asked, "What have you done?" And then, without waiting for an answer, it asked again, "What now?" What began as an innovation for structure became an instrument of anxiety. Every tick sliced time into smaller fragments, forcing humans to live in a mental state of perpetual countdown. You weren't simply alive. You were 20 minutes late, or 3 weeks behind, or 1 year away from failure. The emotional consequences of this are profound. The mechanical clock imposed a rigid scaffold on something that had always been fluid. Time was once the river you swam in. Now it's a treadmill that never slows. Even your heartbeat feels out of sync with it. You can be sitting in silence, doing nothing at all, and yet feel overwhelmed. Why? Because the clock on your wall insists that time is escaping, even when you're still. The moment you check the time, you're not in the moment anymore. You're in the race. And in that race, everyone is behind. No one arrives. This obsession bled into our systems, into schools, where bells teach children to obey time, not curiosity, into workplaces, where presence is measured more than performance, into our homes, where even dinner is squeezed between deadlines. We don't just keep track of time anymore, we track ourselves with it. Productivity apps, step counters, sleep monitors, every aspect of life must now be accounted for in measurable units, as if existence itself must be audited. But the irony is painful. The more precisely we measure time, the less of it we feel we have. We track it, obsess over it, manage it, and yet we're constantly in a state of deficit. It's not that we don't have enough time, it's that we're no longer allowed to feel like we do. We don't experience time. We monitor it. We don't live days. We survive schedules. And maybe that's the cruelest part, that a tool built to bring order to prayer now shackles us to pressure, that a wheel of cogs, designed in simplicity, grew into a psychological labyrinth, that something as gentle and eternal as sunrise and sunset got replaced by red digits glowing on a bedside table. What began as an instrument of unity became an engine of discontent. And yet, despite all this, despite the weight of the tick, the tyranny of the to-do, and the artificial rush, we still long for a different rhythm. Somewhere in us, there's still the memory of the day, lived slowly, a morning that began when the body was ready, a meal eaten without a countdown, a walk taken not for steps, but for stillness. Somewhere, buried under reminders and notifications, is the knowledge that time doesn't have to rule us, it can flow with us. The clock may govern the hours, but it's the moment that makes them count.
Number 11. The capitalist clock. It's easy to forget that time hasn't always been measured the way it is now. There was a time when people woke with the sun, worked until it set, and rested when darkness fell. Days were shaped by rhythm, of seasons, weather, hunger, and light. But that was before we put numbers to it. Before time became a unit to manage, calculate,
and, eventually, sell. When the Industrial Revolution hit, something changed, not just in the way people worked, but in how they experienced time. Factories didn't run on sunlight. They ran on schedules. Machines demanded consistency, and humans had to adjust. The day was no longer defined by the natural world, but by the mechanical tick of a factory bell or the whistle that signaled the start of a shift. Time was sliced into hours, then into minutes. Those minutes became the currency of productivity. The more you produced per minute, the more valuable you were. And so time became a commodity, something you could waste, trade, lose, or be robbed of. The capitalist clock taught us that time is money. It told us that every moment, not working, was a moment not earning. Rest became laziness. Reflection became indulgence. You weren't just living, you were performing, optimizing. And if you weren't keeping up, you were falling behind. This subtle shift, from being in time to being on time, embedded a sense of perpetual urgency, a pressure that hums beneath everything we do. It's not just your phone buzzing, or the next meeting on your calendar. It's the internalized belief that time is running out, and you are in a race against it. What makes this illusion more insidious is that it disguises itself as ambition, the glorification of hustle, the worship of busyness, the praise you get for working late, skipping lunch, multitasking. It feels like you're winning. But deep down there's that hollow ache, that nagging sense you're always behind, even when you're ahead. That's not failure. That's the system working exactly as designed. You see it in the workplace. You clock in, sit down, and already feel behind. You answer emails between bites of breakfast, hold meetings while walking, and celebrate saving 2 minutes like you've cheated death. But the list never ends. There is always one more task, one more notification. You finish a project, only to feel behind on the next. Self-care is now productivity disguised in lavender oil and 10-minute meditations. Even our weekends are infected. You tell yourself you'll relax, and then spend hours scheduling the relaxation. Plan the movie, book the brunch, optimize the fun. And when Monday arrives, you feel exhausted by how much you tried to unwind. But the truth is, there's no space for time to stretch. Not anymore. Not in a world where every moment must justify its existence. Capitalism didn't just steal our time. It rewrote our relationship with it. It told us to earn the right to pause, to treat every second like a debt we owe. But the irony is brutal. The more we try to buy time, the less of it we actually feel. The days blur, the years vanish. You look up from your desk, and it's August. Again, you scroll for a moment, and an hour disappears. Not because you're careless, but because time, under this system, was never designed to feel yours. And here you are, wondering why it always feels like there's never enough. Maybe it's not your fault. Maybe it's the illusion, the one sold in office posters, startup culture, and motivational reels telling you to grind, now shine later. But what if you've already lost years to the grind, and the shine never comes? That feeling, the ache in your chest, when you realize you didn't live this week, just got through it, isn't burnout. It's grief. For a life you're being asked to hurry through, for a timeline someone else drew for you. And maybe the boldest thing you can do now isn't to manage your time better, but to reclaim it. Even if that just means staring out the window for 10 unproductive minutes, daring the clock not to own you. Number 12. Time poverty and the working class. You can wake up at 7 a.m., just like the millionaire. You can set alarms, read the same productivity books, download the same to-do apps, and still, something feels different. The time you have feels heavier, not like a choice, but a debt. That's what no one talks about in the productivity sermons, the unspoken truth that time doesn't belong to everyone equally. It's not about how many hours are in your day, it's about who gets to own them. And when your hours are leased to survival, when the clock is tied to your rent, your food, your child's medicine, time isn't a resource, it's a leash. The phrase "time is money" was never neutral. It was a warning, dressed up as wisdom. When your minutes are monetized by someone else, your hours don't stretch the way they do for those who command their schedules. For the working class, time poverty is not a metaphor, it's a lived exhaustion. The shift starts early, maybe even before sunrise. You wake up, not when your body is ready, but when the clock demands it. Your commute isn't filled with podcasts or quiet introspection. It's stress, traffic, calculations. Can I afford eggs this week? Did I forget to pack the lunch? How many hours till I clock out? There's something brutal about the way modern life packages labor. It promises freedom on the other side of fatigue. Just grind now, it says, and you'll rest later. But later never arrives. The schedule resets. The bills recycle. The time you thought you were buying back drifts further. And the world keeps selling you calendars and routines and time hacks, as if the problem is your inability to manage time, when the truth is, it was never yours to begin with. Some people get to measure their days in projects and passions. Others count them in shifts and seconds. And when you're time poor, your soul begins to adapt in dangerous ways. You stop dreaming. You stop imagining what you'd do with free time, because the thought feels cruel. What's the point of fantasizing about afternoons in the sun when you barely see it anymore? What's the point of wanting silence when your life is built around the next alarm? But even in the thick of that, there's this flicker, a resistance, a quiet rebellion. It shows up in stolen moments, 5 extra minutes with your kid before the bus, that slow sip of coffee even when you're running late, the book you read on your break, the song you play twice on the ride home, just to feel something. These are not wasted minutes. They are proof you still remember how to feel time, not just count it. And they matter, because time poverty isn't just economic, it's emotional. It's the erosion of inner life. When every hour is transactional, you lose touch with wonder, with presence. But the truth that no boss, no schedule, no system wants you to remember is this: presence is power, not control, not efficiency, just presence. Being here, fully, even if here is a noisy bus or a fluorescent-lit break room. And when you begin to notice time again, not as a monster chasing you, but as a companion walking beside you, you change. Not your income, not your hours, but your perception. You take a second longer before answering. You breathe before reacting. You stop wishing for more time and start using the cracks in your day to live, not just survive. You might not own your schedule, but you can reclaim moments. You can learn the rhythm of your own heartbeat underneath the noise. You can feel how 5 honest minutes can sometimes outweigh 5 hollow hours. And maybe you still wake up to the same alarm. Maybe your job doesn't change, but you do. Your attention does. Your presence deepens. And in a world that has taught you to treat time like a vanishing currency, you begin to treat it like something sacred. Not because you have more of it, but because now, even in its smallest pieces, it finally feels like it's yours. Number 13. Why flow feels eternal. It always starts the same way. You sit down to do something, thinking it'll be just 10 minutes. Maybe you're sketching. Maybe you're writing. Maybe you're fixing something, a song, a piece of code, a paragraph that refuses to behave. And then, when you look up, an hour is gone. Not wasted, not stolen, just dissolved. But in that disappearance, you don't feel loss. You feel alive. That is the power of flow. And maybe, just maybe, it's the only time when you stop chasing the illusion of time and actually live inside it. When Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi first introduced the idea of flow, he wasn't describing productivity in the way we talk about it now, with deadlines, checklists, and constant self-monitoring. He was talking about the rare, precious moments where time stops having authority. When you're so immersed in what you're doing that the concept of how long it's taking simply disappears. There is no next. There is no before. There is only now. So deep and so consuming that your brain stops measuring minutes. It becomes a current, and you ride it. This is not what most of us are trained for. We're taught to track, to log, to hustle, to optimize. But the irony is that the most meaningful work we do, the most fulfilling, the most timeless, never happens when we're staring at a clock. It happens in the spaces in between. The zone, that magical headspace, where challenge and skill collide so perfectly that your brain stops self-critiquing and simply creates. No worrying if it's good enough. No internal voice listing all the other things you should be doing. Just you and the task. One heartbeat. One moment. Flow isn't a reward for discipline. It's a portal that opens when discipline and curiosity meet. You can't force it, but you can invite it by making time for the things that stretch you just enough. The things that make you lose your sense of self-consciousness. You know the feeling when you forget to check your phone, when you don't notice you're hungry, when your inner critic goes quiet and your hands keep moving, almost without you. It feels rare because we don't protect it. We treat it like a luxury, not a necessity. We let interruptions fracture our focus, let schedules pull us out of the deep end before we've even warmed up. But what if we're thinking about time wrong? What if the deepest, richest experience of time is not about managing it, but about forgetting it, about letting it dissolve as we fall into something real? Because here's the quiet truth. No one says aloud, the people who feel like they have enough time are not the ones who've mastered their calendars. They're the ones who've tasted the richness of flow and chased it back into their lives. They are the musicians who rehearse until the room goes dark. The gardeners who forget it's been hours in the dirt. The researchers who look up from the microscope and realize the sun is rising. They aren't outrunning the clock. They've simply stopped hearing it tick. But in a world that values measurement over meaning, flow is almost rebellious. It doesn't show up neatly in a time tracker. You can't bill it by the hour. You can't summarize it in a KPI. And yet it's in those invisible hours, the ones you didn't count, the ones you didn't even notice, that something eternal gets built inside you. Call it mastery, call it craft, call it joy, call it anything you want, but you'll know it by how deeply it anchors you in the present. And maybe that's what we've been missing. Not just more time, but deeper time. Not just days filled with activity, but hours soaked in presence. Moments that don't feel fast or slow, just full. Maybe the illusion of time isn't just that we don't have enough, but that we've forgotten how it bends when we're in alignment with our purpose. Maybe time isn't something to conquer. Maybe it's something to surrender to when the current finally pulls you under, and you let go and begin to drift into something true.
Number 14. The time sickness of always being behind. You wake up before your alarm, and somehow you're already behind. The sun hasn't risen yet, but your brain is sprinting through a checklist you never agreed to write. Emails, meetings, deadlines, and somewhere in between, you're supposed to eat, maybe exercise, maybe call your mother, maybe even enjoy life for a second.
But none of that feels like living. It feels like chasing, and no matter how fast you move, the finish line never gets closer. This is time sickness. Not the lack of time, but the sinking gut-deep feeling that you're always too late for it. You try to catch up. You open your calendar like it's a battlefield strategy. You install productivity apps. Schedule your day to the second, block social media, listen to speed-reading audiobooks while brushing your teeth. You think this will fix it, this overwhelming pressure that hums just beneath the skin. But it doesn't. In fact, it makes it worse. The more efficiently you try to live, the more you're haunted by what you haven't done. Every gap between tasks becomes a void. Every moment of rest feels like failure. You're not even allowed to be tired, because being tired means you're falling behind again. The sickness doesn't live in the clock. It lives in the way you've been taught to relate to time. You were told that the measure of a good life is output, how much you achieve, how fast you rise, how packed your days are. You're taught to glorify the hustle, romanticize the burnout, compete over who slept less. You can't just be any more, you must be better. And if you're not better, you're wasting something that can't be replaced. But who decides what time is worth? Who defines what a good use of time looks like? You've probably never asked yourself that, because the answer was fed to you long ago. You absorbed it from the world around you. Grades, resumes, KPIs, social media posts that celebrate 5 a.m. gym sessions and 18-hour workdays. The story was always the same. If you're not moving, you're losing. If you're not producing, you're falling behind. You internalized that script. You recited it until it became your voice. Until you stopped questioning whether the race you're running even leads somewhere you want to go. And so now, even when you do accomplish something, even when you hit the goal, close the deal, ace the test, the relief is brief. A second of stillness, then another wave of dread. Because there's more, there's always more. A better job, a new benchmark, 1,000 invisible standards you never agreed to, but now feel forced to chase. It becomes a loop you can't break. Because slowing down feels like failure, stopping feels like death. But here's the twist. This feeling, this I'm behind panic, isn't a sign that you're lazy or weak. It's a symptom of a system that profits off your exhaustion. A culture that fears silence. A world that told you your worth is equal to your productivity, and then made you sick trying to live up to that lie. You're not broken. The system is, because time at its core isn't rigid. It bends, stretches, breathes. In moments of awe, it pauses. In danger, it dilates. In presence, it softens. But you've been conditioned to flatten it, to cut it into blocks, to squeeze it into to-do lists, to sell it in exchange for identity and value. So it's no wonder it feels like it's slipping through your fingers. You've never been taught how to feel time, only how to measure it. And maybe that's what healing looks like, learning to feel time again, not just as hours and tasks, but as something lived. Reclaiming your minutes from the jaws of scarcity, letting go of the illusion that you're behind some invisible schedule, because you're not. You're here. And here is enough. So the next time your chest tightens and your mind spirals into that familiar anxiety, that sense of being late for a life you haven't even defined, pause, not to catch up, but to question the chase itself. Because maybe the goal isn't to master time. Maybe it's to finally make peace with it.
Number 15. The fear of wasting time. It creeps in when you're lying on the couch, scrolling without purpose, or when you pause at a cafe just to sip your drink in silence. That uncomfortable twinge in your chest.
The whisper in your mind, "You're wasting time." In a world that prizes output over presence, stillness has become suspicious. Leisure is no longer a natural human rhythm. It's now something we must justify, track, schedule, and above all, earn. We weren't born this way. Children don't feel guilty for daydreaming. They can spend hours watching clouds or spinning in circles without once wondering if it's productive. But somewhere along the way, we internalized a story that our worth is measured by what we produce, and that every second not filled with visible monetizable activity is a second wasted. This belief wasn't written in our biology. It was whispered to us by the tick of the modern clock, and shouted louder by the digital world we now live inside. The moment you start to think of time as a currency, something you can lose, spend poorly, or fall behind on, you begin to fear it. This fear isn't just philosophical, it's physical. The anxiety that swells in your chest when you close Netflix without finishing an episode, or when you dare to lie in bed past 9 a.m. on a Sunday, isn't laziness, it's a form of self-surveillance. It's the echo of a system that convinced you that your time must always be used, that stillness is not just unproductive, but unworthy. This is why vacations make us restless. It's why sitting at the park without our phones can feel unnatural. We don't know what to do with time that isn't structured, directed, or optimized. And yet, ironically, it is precisely this kind of unstructured time that our minds crave. It's in those seemingly wasted hours that creativity blooms, ideas germinate, and emotional repair quietly unfolds. But our conditioning runs deep. Even in rest, we feel the need to justify. I needed a break. I was burnt out. It was self-care. Rarely do we say, I did nothing, and that was enough. This mindset comes at a cost, and not just emotionally. When we see rest as a reward and not a right, we limit our access to joy, spontaneity, and presence. We become so focused on what we should be doing that we overlook what's unfolding around us. Time in this view becomes a race, and every pause feels like falling behind. Behind whom? The truth is, there is no universal stopwatch counting your life. The pressure we feel isn't from time itself, it's from expectation. Social media has only amplified this, a constant feed of others' productive lives, curated to perfection, makes us hyper-aware of our own stillness. If you're not starting a business, learning a new skill, meal prepping, or side hustling by 10 p.m., what are you even doing? And yet, when we look back at the moments that mattered most, they weren't crammed with activity. They were quiet. Sitting under a tree with someone you love, watching the sky change color from orange to violet, reading a book slowly, just because the words felt like water. These are the moments that define a life, not the hours logged in a spreadsheet. The fear of wasting time is not a flaw in our character. It's a glitch in the culture we've inherited, a culture that equates silence with idleness, and idleness with failure. But you are not a machine, and time is not your enemy. You are allowed to exist without constantly justifying your being. To reclaim your sense of time is to reclaim your right to live without the clock always looming above. It's to let go of the idea that rest must be earned, and to realize that your value was never tied to how much you did in a day. You don't need to fill every moment to prove you deserve to be here. And in that quiet space, the space you once tried to fill, something miraculous happens. The noise settles, the world softens, your breath becomes steady. And for the first time in a long while, time isn't running away from you. It's simply standing still, right beside you, waiting to be noticed. Number 16. The rise of time-tracking apps. It starts with good intentions, as most traps do. You open your phone to install a simple app, a timer perhaps, or maybe a habit tracker that promises a better you, more focused, more present, more accomplished. The interface is minimal, sleek, almost meditative in its design. It doesn't shout, it whispers efficiency. Track your time, it says, and you'll finally understand where it all goes. And that seems fair, rational, smart, even. We've been told that what gets measured gets managed. And time, that slippery, vanishing currency, seems like the one thing worth managing above all. You start small. You block out your day in half-hour increments. Wake-up routine, check. Deep work time, check. Meals, check. A walk, some reading, winding down at night. It feels like progress. Control. You know now with surgical precision what your hours look like. You stop guessing. You stop wondering where the day went. The app shows you, but something strange begins to shift. You find yourself glancing at the clock more often, not because you're curious, but because you're calculating. How much is left in this 45-minute block? Have you hit your Pomodoro goal yet? Did you switch tasks at the right time? There's a twitch now, a low hum of tension, whenever you're off by a few minutes. You feel like you've wasted something when a task bleeds over. You tell yourself it's harmless, that you're optimizing. But underneath, time, once an open field, begins to feel like a narrow hallway with a clock at every turn. The very tool that promised to liberate your hours becomes another form of measurement, another ruler held against your life. You begin logging breaks, rating focus, color-coding your productivity. But what you don't notice, not at first, is how your relationship with time itself is beginning to warp. You're no longer living inside a moment. You're standing outside it, measuring it, watching it unfold from the corner of your eye, like a coach pacing beside a runner, judging. There's an irony to it all. You track time to feel more in control, but the act of tracking steals the softness of it. Before the app, a walk in the park was just that, a walk. Now it's a green labeled block, labeled wellness recovery. Before the timer, your morning coffee was a slow ritual. Now it's squeezed into a countdown before the deep work session begins. The rhythms of your life haven't improved. They've been divided, dissected, and boxed. You start to notice a dullness creeping in, a subtle kind of time sickness. You're more productive, maybe. You're crossing things off. But the joy of doing, of being inside something fully, feels more and more distant. You wonder why even free time feels scheduled, why even rest has started to taste like failure, unless it was pre-approved by your digital calendar. You tell yourself, this is modern life. Everyone feels this. Everyone is tired. Everyone is rushing. But deep down, there's a quiet ache. Not for more time, you never had less or more, but for the version of yourself that lived inside the hours, not around them. The child who didn't know what day it was, only that the sun was out and the grass was soft. The teenager who lost track of time under the night sky, talking nonsense with a friend who understood you without words. The adult you once were, who cooked without watching the clock, who danced without wondering if it counted as cardio, who rested without apology. So one day, you leave your phone behind, not forever, just for a walk. No headphones, no timer, no step counter, just you. The street smells like dust and jasmine. A dog barks. The sky changes color without asking your permission. And something inside your chest exhales. There's a wordless kind of awareness in that moment, a slowness, not the kind you track, but the kind that sneaks up on you when you forget to look. You realize then, Time doesn't need to be managed. It needs to be witnessed, not wrangled into color-coded grids, but held like breath, tender, passing, and real.
Number 17. Time in crisis. How emergencies slow the clock. Time has always felt like something we chase, something elusive that dances just out of reach. We measure it, track it, stretch it with to-do lists, and cut it down with distractions. But when the ordinary cracks and the unthinkable happens, when sirens scream or your breath shortens in panic, something else happens. Time begins to drip. Thick and slow. Seconds feel like hours. You could swear you watched a single drop of water roll down the side of a glass for an entire minute, and for a strange, suspended moment, the illusion flips. Time, which was racing away all day, now clings to your skin. It's in those moments of real crisis, when your body floods with adrenaline, when the world narrows into tunnel vision, that you experience the raw neurological elasticity of time. Ask someone who's been in a car accident. They'll tell you it felt like everything slowed down, like they could see the crash unfold in frames. They didn't gain superpowers. Their brain just switched operating modes. Under extreme stress, the amygdala, that primal part of your brain built to scan for threats, starts capturing far more detail than usual. It's like switching from standard definition to ultra-high resolution. More images, more sensory input, more moments recorded per second. And later, when your memory tries to replay it, it feels longer, denser, like you lived more in that minute than you did all morning. That's the paradox. Time doesn't slow down in the moment, because your brain speeds up. It slows down in hindsight, because your memory makes room for it. Time isn't being warped by the world outside you, it's being rewritten by your brain inside. You've heard the saying, life flashes before your eyes, but really, it's more like your brain flares into overdrive, soaking up anything that might help you survive. And that overdrive lays down memories in deeper grooves. Trauma leaves time marks that regular days never do. It's why emergencies feel timeless, while normal days vanish. How often have you sat at your desk, looked up, and realized 4 hours passed? Nothing intense, nothing memorable, just the ticking blur of repetition. But when something startles you, when your body surges with fear or awe, your mind expands around it, like a balloon filling quickly with air. That moment becomes a landmark in the endless terrain of passing time. This is where it gets interesting, because it's not just fear that triggers this. Awe can do the same. Standing under a vast night sky, hearing your child cry for the first time, feeling silence settle in a snow-covered street. These things pull you out of time. They slow you down, or rather, they allow you to record more. The detail becomes depth, and with depth, time stretches. Maybe that's part of the problem. We're starving for depth. We're addicted to shallow hits, quick reels, swipe dopamine. We forget that the way to make a moment last longer isn't to fill it with more. It's to feel it more. Presence is not about cramming your calendar. It's about expanding your awareness. It's not about having time. It's about being in time. Time, you see, isn't just a ticking clock. It's a shape you press yourself into, and your mind, brilliant and brutal as it is, can reshape that container entirely. In an emergency, it stretches the container so wide you could fall into it. But it also leaves scars, because when time slows down too much, it can trap you, freeze you in the slow drip of a moment you didn't choose. The danger isn't just in how long it felt, but in how long it stays with you. And yet there's something strangely beautiful about this mechanism, this fragile trick of perception that gives us eternity in a second. It's like life is giving you a chance to notice, to burn something real into your memory, not to punish, not always,
but to shake you awake. Because if fear can stretch time, so can intention. You don't need disaster to unlock presence. You just need to look up, pay attention, see the color of someone's eyes when they laugh, feel the weight of your feet on the ground, taste the end of a sentence instead of rushing into the next. Time isn't slipping through your fingers. It's waiting in the spaces you keep skipping. It's hiding in the stillness you keep running from. It's not just in trauma or wonder. It's in the moment you decide to notice you're alive.
Number 18. Why aging feels faster. Time, they say, waits for no one, but it doesn't move the same for everyone either. When you're 5, summer feels like an entire lifetime. A single afternoon can stretch into eternity, with every hour colored in imagination and newness. But somewhere along the way, it changes. The older you get, the faster it seems to run. Years slip past, like pages caught in the wind, and you start to say things like, "Wasn't that just yesterday?" or "I can't believe it's August already." It's not just a feeling, it's a psychological truth. The passage of time, at least as we experience it, isn't linear, it's elastic. The human brain doesn't track time by the second, it builds time through memory. The more vivid, novel, or emotional the moments, the more densely packed that stretch of time becomes in your memory. That's why childhood feels slow, everything is new. The first snowfall, the first time you ride a bike, the first heartbreak, each moment carved deep into your awareness. But as you grow older, you stop collecting firsts. Days become predictable. Wake, work, eat, sleep, repeat. You stop paying attention because you think you've seen it all, and your brain, ever efficient, compresses those uneventful days into a blur. This illusion that time speeds up isn't something we notice until it's already happened. We don't see the shift coming. There's no sudden warning that you've moved from the wide-eyed gaze of childhood to the clock-watching tension of adulthood. You just look up one day, and a decade has passed. The music you loved is now retro. People you knew have moved, aged, disappeared. You wonder where the years went. You ache to go back, not because the past was perfect, but because it felt fuller, slower, more alive. The irony is that time didn't change. You did. Or more specifically, your attention did. Your mind stopped stretching into the present moment and started racing ahead. You began treating time like currency, budgeting it, saving it, wasting it, losing it. You filled your schedule with tasks, deadlines, distractions. You replaced being with doing. And in that switch, you stopped noticing the small textures of your life. The way light shifts through your window at noon, the sound of wind rustling trees after a storm, the warmth of a silent moment with someone you love. These were the things that once anchored time. Now they pass unnoticed. And yet, there are ways to slow it down again. Not literally. The seconds still tick forward. But experientially, you can interrupt the blur. You can bring back the weight of your days. The first step is awareness. Begin to observe what you've ignored. The taste of your coffee, the colors in the sky, the rhythms of your breath. Pay attention when you walk, when you eat, when you speak. Attention is the true measure of time, and reclaiming it is a form of rebellion. Do something new, not for productivity, but for presence. Try a new route, home. Cook a dish you've never tasted. Sit in silence and watch the sun disappear below the horizon. These small choices, so often dismissed, are portals. They create memory. They stretch time. They remind your mind that life isn't just something to manage, it's something to feel. Because in the end, you don't remember years, you remember moments.
The laughter of a friend in the middle of an otherwise forgettable Tuesday. The feeling of cold grass under your back as you stared at the stars. The way your parent looked at you one evening, proud, tired, glowing with a kind of love that words can't touch. These are the things that resist the blur. These are the things that make time stop, or at least, make it stay. And that's the secret. You don't have to fight time. You just have to fill it. Fill it not with more, but with meaning. Let your hours be heavy again. Let them slow you down. Because the more life you pour into a moment, the longer it lasts inside you.
Number 19. Living slowly in a fast world. While everything around you races, while your phone begs for your attention, and your calendar fills before you even approve it, there exists, quietly and patiently, another way of moving through the world. It doesn't buzz. It doesn't beep. It doesn't announce itself with a 5-second countdown or algorithmically chosen reminder tone. It simply waits, like a stream under snow, slow but never still. And in that stillness lies something we've forgotten how to access: peace without pressure, motion without rush. The slow life is not the absence of ambition. It's the rejection of urgency as a status symbol. You can feel it when you sit down to eat, with no screen, no deadline, no side task. When your spoon clinks against the side of a bowl, and you actually taste what's inside it. When the sun hits the wall in a particular way, and you let yourself stop to watch it, instead of photographing it for someone else. These aren't luxuries, or at least they weren't always. There was a time when slow was default, when sunrise and sunset dictated rhythm, not notifications. When you walked because walking was how you arrived, not a 10K step goal to meet. Now walking feels like something you must justify with data. If it doesn't count toward productivity, was it even worth it? But slow living isn't about rejecting modernity. It's about choosing where to place your attention. It's deciding that your minutes are not up for auction, that you don't owe every spare second to a screen or a schedule, that quiet is not a vacuum but a canvas. Most people don't realize how much of their life they've handed over to speed. How often we eat fast, talk fast, even love fast. Every text that says sorry, can't talk, run. Every skipped call, every rushed hug, all folded into a life that feels full but hollow. Because time that is full of everything can be empty of meaning. The slow life is a rebellion, gentle but deliberate. It means cooking, not because you must, but because you want to feel the rhythm of chopping, the smell of spices blooming, the transformation of raw to nourishment. It means writing by hand, not to be aesthetic, but because your thoughts move differently when they're forced to slow down and follow your pen. It's standing in line without checking your phone, and realizing that you are still whole without constant input. You are still here. Our bodies crave this stillness more than we know. The nervous system wasn't built for this much interruption. The brain can't process its own thoughts if it's constantly reacting. That's why you forget why you walked into a room, why you open apps and don't remember why. We're not forgetful, we're fragmented, and speed fragments us more than anything else. When you slow down, you begin to remember, not just where you were going but who you are. Time expands when we pay attention. It collapses when we rush. A slow morning feels longer than a frenzied day. A single moment of presence, holding someone's hand, watching wind move through trees, can stretch into something timeless. That's the paradox. Slowing down doesn't waste time. It stretches it. It returns you to it. In a world that equates movement with value, choosing to live slowly is quietly revolutionary. It doesn't look impressive on paper. You won't get applause for walking instead of driving, for staying home instead of hustling out, but you will get something better. Your life, unfiltered, unrushed.
Yours. Because somewhere in all that slowness you will start noticing things again. Your breath, the way you say someone's name, how silence between sentences isn't awkward but full. You'll notice the smell of the air before it rains, the warmth of sun on skin, the way your favorite mug fits your hand. And in those things, not grand achievements or milestone goals, you'll find a rhythm that feels less like survival and more like arrival. And maybe as you start to walk slower, talk softer, sit longer, you'll realize you're not falling behind. You were just finally moving at the speed of being alive.
Number 20. The final question. Is time even real? Time. Everyone talks about it like it's currency. We save it, spend it, waste it, lose it, try to make it. But when you peel back the surface of hours and minutes and seconds, you start to realize something unsettling. We don't actually understand what time is. Not really. We feel it. We chase it. But the deeper you go, into science, into philosophy, into the nature of consciousness itself, the more it begins to slip through your fingers. It starts to look less like a ticking metronome, and more like a beautifully convincing illusion. Physicists like Carlo Rovelli and Einstein have cracked that illusion wide open. Time, they say, isn't a universal truth. It's not something that ticks forward in neat slices, no matter where you are. In fact, in Einstein's relativity, time bends. It stretches. It slows down when you move faster or get close to something with mass. To a clock in space, seconds tick differently than they do on Earth. That's not science fiction. That's why GPS satellites need time adjustments constantly to stay accurate. So even the tools we depend on to tell time admit that time isn't stable. Yet we live by it. We live for it. We've built entire lives on alarm clocks and appointments, and the terrifying idea of being too late. But the more we try to control time, the more it controls us. And we ignore what every artist and philosopher has tried to tell us for centuries, that time is a story we're telling ourselves. Your mind isn't a machine, reading from a cosmic stopwatch. Your experience of time is personal, fluid, emotional. Think about how a joyful afternoon with someone you love can disappear in the blink of an eye, while a boring meeting can stretch into what feels like eternity. There is no objective speed there, only perception. You're not living in hours. You're living in moments. The ancient Greeks even had two words for time: chronos, the structured, numbered time of clocks and calendars, and kairos, the immeasurable, sacred time of experience and presence. We've lost touch with kairos. We've traded it for productivity apps and countdown timers, for the cruel ticking of deadlines. And maybe that's why so many of us feel this quiet panic, this sense that life is racing past, and we're not even holding the wheel. We're scrolling, we're refreshing, we're checking the clock, again and again, as if watching it will slow it down. But it won't, because the illusion isn't the clock. The illusion is that time is outside of us, that it's something we're subject to, when in truth, it's something we create. When you're meditating, time melts. When you're dancing or making art or kissing someone who feels like the whole universe, you don't think in minutes. You think in pulses, in breaths, in a now that is thick and wide and infinite. The more you're present, the slower time seems to move. But the second you step out of presence, into worry, regret, comparison, fear, time speeds up again. It races away, and you chase it, breathless, wondering where it all went. Maybe the question isn't how to manage time. Maybe it's how to return to it. Not to the clock, but to the moment. To the deep truth that you are not behind, and you are not running out.
You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Time is not your enemy. Forgetting the present is. In the end, the most rebellious thing you can do isn't to optimize your time, but to feel it. To sink into the softness of a second. To hold a conversation without thinking about the next thing. To walk slowly, even when the world says run. Because maybe the real illusion isn't that we don't have enough time. Maybe the illusion is that we ever needed more than this.